The Fauci hearing is currently underway as I record this. We've got some spicy news already. Marjorie Taylor Greene has called for a criminal referral against Fauci for crimes against humanity. Wow, that's bold. I can say at the very least, the man lied to Congress and the American people. And this is confirmed by Newsweek 3 years ago. We knew that Fauci was lying about funding gain-of-function research and his involvement. He lied to Rand Paul. It was ridiculous how they allow him to get away with it. And I'll put it bluntly when I say I want to see criminal prosecution. I'm done with this. Watching Donald Trump get run over the coals, watching Roger Stone, Steve Bannon, you name it. You get these leftists being like, look, the fact that all of Trump's political allies are being criminally charged proves they're bad people. No, it doesn't. It proves that you are fascists. Fauci is testifying before Congress. Rand Paul says, I have a document here that says literally gain of function research on it. And Fauci's like, we didn't do it. Gain of function research. What is that? What does that pertain to COVID? Okay. So there's some other big news, too, before I get into the finer details. Dr. Fauci confesses he made up the COVID rules, including 6-foot social distancing. Wow, amazing. And we even had one exchange I can pull up for you, where when asked, Fauci says, there were no studies done that showed masks did anything. You have to respond to the pandemic before you have the data. Incredible. Saying, hey, it was a tremendous opportunity to impose restrictions without evidence and then see what happens afterwards. There's a word for that. When you subject something to a circumstance to collect data, what do we call that? We call that an experiment. Now, look, I'm not suggesting it's the same thing as like kidnapping a bunch of kids, locking them in a box, and then doing weird tests on them. I'm saying that Dr. Fauci proposed rules not knowing whether or not these things would have any impact. People were losing their jobs over this. Kids were forced to do it. It was causing social and learning problems with no evidence. Trust the science, they said. The science they made up on the spot. Can't believe it's been 4 years. 4 years. But gain of function research. I'll address this briefly so you can understand for those that aren't familiar. I think many of you are, but gain of function is when they take a virus and they want to have it gain functions. It's really that simple. So how do they do this? There's a variety of ways. One, they'll take a virus that typically infects, say, chickens. And then what they'll do is they'll take the infected chickens and they will put them in close quarters with another animal until some element of the virus will mutate and be able to infect the other animal. Then they'll take, so here's what they were doing with bats. They take a bunch of bats. They infect them with the coronavirus. This is what they do in Wuhan. Put them in a cage and let them all infect each other. They then track the symptoms that are happening in each animal. And they say, here's something new. This one's gagging and wheezing and struggling to breathe. They then isolate that one and make it infect a bunch of other bats. So they've isolated a more virulent strain that can cause a specific symptom. Now you have caused it to gain function. The general idea is that in close quarters, these viruses can mutate and gain these functions. They just accelerate the process by doing as I explained. Fauci was funding it. And so when Rand Paul said, were you funding gain-of-function research? Fauci goes, no, we were not. We were basically just making viruses more virulent by What do you mean? Well, we were doing lab work where we put an animal in this room and then we gave it a virus. And then Rand Paul's like, Dr. Fauci, you're explaining gain-of-function research to me. The document here says you did it. And he goes, no, we didn't. The way I always described it is like Rand Paul's going, Dr. Fauci, is there a door on your house? There is no door. There is simply a large piece of wood with a knob on it. And when you turn the knob, hinges swivel and the wood moves outward. And it's like, dude, you're describing a door to me. It's absolutely insane that these people are able to get away with lying and committing crimes. Well, here we are. Take it away, Marjorie Taylor Greene. What's the latest? She ended her time by calling for a criminal referral against Fauci for crimes against humanity. She did not provide Fauci time to respond. Her remarks were preceded by criticisms against Fauci's attendance at a baseball game where he was seen not wearing a mask. Greene referred to a photo of him at a game as evidence of his repulsive evil science. I wouldn't put it that way because the left will weaponize that. They're going to be like, evil science. Dr. Fauci confesses he made up the COVID rules. Oh, boy. Bombshell testimony from Dr. Fauci reveals he made up the 6-foot social distancing rule and other measures to protect Americans from COVID. Here we go. Republicans put out the full transcript of their sit-down interview with Fauci from January, just days before his highly anticipated public testimony on Monday. They plan to grill him about COVID restrictions he put in place that he admitted didn't do much to slow the spread of the virus. It's actually fascinating. They ask him about the vaccine, and he goes on to say, initially it did slow things down, but, later it was not as durable. That's how he described it. Well, I'll let you hear his words. They plan to grill him about COVID restrictions he put in place that he admitted he didn't do, that didn't do much to slow the spread. Kids' learning loss and social setbacks have been well documented, with one National Institute of Health study calling the impact of mask use on students' literacy and learning very negative. Dude, I don't know if y'all have been paying attention, but I know many of you are probably teachers or no teachers. The stuff I'm hearing from teachers, kids who are in like 8th grade who can barely read, who can't do math, struggling, they can't read clocks. Yeah, we're in trouble. The next generation of this country, they're going to struggle to be adults. They're not going to know how to do basic math or tell the time. What are you going to get? You're going to get a bunch of angry people who, for some reason, they're just going to say to themselves, I don't know how to eat food. I don't know where food comes from. And they're going to be mad. Mad, and they're not going to be smart enough to figure out how to solve their problems. So what do? A revolution. And then social collapse. Soviet style, probably. Unless we do something about it. Now, culturally, I think we are winning. But we are going to face some challenges because they've done this already. Let me play some clips for you. Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene. You can hear the words from her. Here we go.
What this committee should be doing, we should be recommending you to be prosecuted. We should be writing a criminal referral because you should be prosecuted for crimes against humanity. You belong in prison, Dr. Fauci.
And that is how she ended it. Strong words.
Vaccine saved millions.
Let's play this. Libby Emmons tweets, they knew the vaccine waned in efficacy and kept firing people for not taking it anyway.
Of lives, and I want to thank you for your support and engagement on that. However, despite statements to the contrary, it did not stop transmission of the virus. Did the COVID vaccine stop transmission of the virus?
That is a complicated issue because in the beginning, the first iteration of the vaccines did have an effect, not 100%, not a high effect. They did prevent infection and subsequently, obviously, transmission. However, it's important to point out something that we did not know early on that became evident as the months went by is that the durability of protection against infection and hence transmission was relatively limited, whereas the duration of protection against severe disease, hospitalization, and deaths was more prolonged. We did not know that in the beginning. In the beginning, it was felt that, in fact, it did prevent infection and thus transmission. But that
I'm going to pause real quick and just note that he said felt. They felt it. They didn't know.
Was proven as time went by to not be a durable effect.
Yeah, definitely.
Not be a durable effect. That's one way to put it. We have this one. This one's interesting.
And going back to what I said before, all of that is in the context of, at the time, 4,000 to 5,000
mandates for children under 5. There's scientific evidence for that.
Excuse me?
Mask mandates for children under 5. There's scientific evidence supporting that.
There was no study that did masks on kids before. You couldn't do the study. You had to respond to an epidemic that was killing 4,000 to 5,000 Americans per
Vaccine
day.
mandate.
And going back to what
there it is. There were no studies. There was no science. They kept saying, trust the science. There was none. Fauci says straight up, well, we have to do the thing, then collect the data. Wow. Think about all those videos where you've got parents with kids on planes and they're crying because the kids will not wear a mask. and they get kicked off the planes. There were several of them. There was no science to back that up. And they kept saying, trust the science. Okay. I trust the science. I just don't trust the politicians that are behind the science. Fauci's not a scientist. He's a bureaucrat. He's effectively a politician. I'll take my word. I'll take the word of actual scientists doing research or doctors. And I'll say this is really funny because at the Libertarian Party convention you had during the presidential debates, one guy up on stage, they were asked about the vaccine, and he's like, were the vaccines safe and effective? And he goes, I'm a doctor. When he's like, I prescribed people the vaccine, boo, they all boo. And then he's like, listen, I'm not saying you should have been forced to take it. I think that's wrong. No one should have been forced to take it. He said, but in the beginning with the first strains, I did see when we started giving out the vaccines, I'm paraphrasing here, but he's like, an effect where people were less likely to come in sick and with serious conditions. Boo, boo, they're all booing it. I'm like, why are you booing him? He's just telling you what he went through. I don't get it. Dude, this is what really, really drives me nuts. There are the zealot pro-vaccine and the zealot anti-vaccine. And I'm like, I'm not saying everybody who's mad at the vaccine is anti-vaccine. I'm saying those two factions do exist. I'm against government mandates. I don't care what drugs you make. No one's forcing me to take like Lunesta or anything. That's like a sleep pill. I don't even know what that does. But the commercials worked, you can tell. I don't care. Make whatever you want. The problem is twofold. Mandates, forcing people, that's wrong. But here's the other component of it. It was private businesses making the decision to do it. So when the Libertarian Party comes out and says private businesses should be allowed to mandate whatever they want, I'm like, okay, well, that's how you got the vaccine mandates, dude. So no, they shouldn't. There should be limits on what businesses can and can't do, in my opinion. I'm not going to sit here and scream free market capitalism and fiat pecunia or anything like that. I think that there's got to be reasonable limits to prevent collusion between systems of power to deprive the rights of individuals, be it private or public. And that being said, I thought it was absolutely hilarious that you've got a libertarian guy on stage saying no vaccine mandates. In my experience as a doctor, I did see a positive effect in the beginning. They booed him for it. I'm like, why are you booing him? You don't know. You're not a doctor. You don't know. This guy's a doctor. He said in the beginning it worked. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't justify mandates. That doesn't justify boosters or anything. I think it's just, the guy's a doctor. It shows that people get their news and information and adhere to it on a tribal and moral line. The libertarians that were booing a doctor who said he saw a positive effect from it, I'm like, I don't understand. You'll see a doctor go online and say, I see bad things. And they'll go, wow, he's so smart. Then you see a doctor go, I see good things. No, you're lying. Boo, boo to you. Huh? I just can't take it, dude. It's just not me. I go back, I got two doctors here. I don't know. I ain't a doctor. Just don't force me to do it because I don't know what's going on. You can believe whatever you want to believe. Just don't hurt people and don't take their stuff. How about that? But that was funny to me. Now, Fauci hurt people and took their stuff. Figuratively. I mean, and indirectly, literally. But here we go. The hearing's currently ongoing. So we'll wrap this one up here, and we'll come back to this later tonight with Timcast IRL. So smash that like button, become a member at timcast.com. I'll wrap it up there. The next show will be coming up at 6 p.m. on the channel. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all then.